My name is Rahiel Tesfamariam. I'm the editor of Urban Cusp, and I'm here with Bakari Kitwana of rapsessions.org. And I want to know, Bakari, what do you think about this?
I think that the problem with the piece is that it doesn't deal with the complexity of class. Kanye West is someone who grew up in a middle-class background, who acquired a certain amount of wealth. He's not super rich in the sense of, say, a billionaire or multi-billionaire. He's rich, and he's not really a part of the problem that has created the Wall Street crisis, the cozy relationship between banks and the government. So to demonize him when he's simply coming out to try to help support a protest, particularly when he has a background in protest, particularly his response to Hurricane Katrina, I think that is unfair, and I think it sets up a really complex class situation. I mean, there is no interrogation of the protesters and what their background is, and in fact, I would argue some of the reasons why the protesters are there is because they're coming out of middle-class backgrounds, and they're protesting the fact that America, for the first time, is producing a generation of middle-class folk who aren't doing better than the previous generation. But as you and I have talked about this, I'm sure you have a different take, so I'd love to hear it.
Well, I mean, I totally agree with you on the fact that he's being criticized for an activist moment, regardless of what was going through his mind, regardless of the motivation, that he was present and that his presence matters. I think it's interesting that a lot of rappers got critique in the aftermath of Troy Davis' execution for their silence. So here you have someone that's there, that's using their power to bring media attention to it. And once again, he's critiqued because of what they believe to be hypocrisy. So that I understand. But I don't think that the author's complaints were about the fact that compared him to other wealthy people that were on site, but I think it was the fact that he was stating that Kanye's more a part of the problem than he is the solution, that he encourages mass consumption, he encourages a focus on designer goods versus community good, and I think those are valid points, that his artistry, where his greatest power lies, is something that he's not using to activist ends. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't think that Kanye started that. He's not the only person in the culture that does it. I mean, it's kind of the same way that people kind of cherry pick hip-hop lyrics and say, well, the hip-hop artists are doing this or the hip-hop artists are doing that. I mean, I think that if we can be critical, one of the things that he does is he says, well, he talks about Kanye's lyrics and says these are the type of lyrics he's represented. I don't even think that that's fair. I think that his lyrics are more complex than the way they are presented. I think the fact that hip-hop, mainstream hip-hop, people at the top of the food chain in mainstream hip-hop peddle in these lyrics and in imagery. So I think that it's unfair to say, well, Michael Moore does this. Michael Moore is wealthy, but he does this. Or Warren Buffett is wealthy, but he does that. Kanye West is wealthy, and he does peddle these images, but peddling the images is in the medium which he operates. Talib is a hip-hop artist. His medium in hip-hop is not the top of the food chain. So Talib has more room to maneuver. So I think that it's an unfair comparison.
Well, I guess where I would have to push back and disagree with you is that when you get down to the greatest influence that rappers and hip-hop artists have, it is their voice. I mean, obviously the image, right? But it's the voice, it's the image, it's all things combined that then impact the way that people live their lives. So I would argue that Kanye has more power than, say, Warren Buffett or Michael Moore in affecting how people live out their day-to-day consumption and thinking and consciousness. And I think it's a power that's underutilized. And so then it almost becomes a slap in the face to show up at a moment when people have risen and said, you know, that we need to do better. He's not a part of the 1%. And he's not a part of the 99%. And I think the complaint is not that as much as it is he has greater influence over the 99% than he's actually utilizing.
Well, I know we're running out of time, but let me say the flip side is he's using his celebrity to bring attention to a cause. And a part of the problem with someone who has the public image of a Kanye is that when he uses that celebrity, it's going to draw attention. So the question becomes like, should he just not participate? I don't really think that's the answer. I think that if he is aligned with a cause, he has not only the responsibility but the right to make his presence felt. The fact that celebrity comes with that, he really can't control that.
Well, I would add, I don't know if it was his presence that was critiqued as much as it was his silence, because once he was there, he didn't speak. And I think a lot of people wondered what was the value in him being there without actually saying anything in support. So maybe his presence was supposed to serve as that support. I would agree with you in that I think it's very harmful to critique artists when they seek to make, a point to be at events like this. Talib was there. Talib spoke. Talib was in performative mode. And Kanye simply had what you would call the ministry of presence. And is that enough, right? Or do we simply demand that people preach to the choir? And I think Kanye being there, maybe that opens the way for a new convert, that maybe seeing that level of engagement excites people, and maybe cause them to think about, what lyrics they'll have in their songs next time. So I do think that the author wasn't as nuanced in the potential for good that could have come down the line. So do you have any finishing remarks, any last thoughts on this?
I do, but I think we'll let it in there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.